And have been reports that children are coming home from school and telling their parents that they've been playing Squid Game at school, obviously not in the classroom, but in the playground. And reports from many countries, so in Asia, in Europe, the US, Australia.
오징어 게임의 기록적 인기 속에 급기야 유럽과 미국 일부 학교에서 10월 31일 할로윈데이에 오징어 게임 의상을 금지시키는 상황까지 발생하고 있습니다. 오징어 게임이 전 세계에 얼마나 영향을 끼치고 있는지를 반증하고 있는데요. 아동폭력성 문제를 다룬 미국, 영국, 독일의 최근 뉴스 프로그램을 통해 어마어마한 오징어 게임의 위력을 확인해 보겠습니다.
Americans are shelling out more to get ready for Halloween. According to the National Retail Federation, people will spend a record $10 billion this year on Halloween candy, decorations, and costumes for adults, kids, and pets. That's $2 billion more than last year. On average, consumers are expected to fork over a little more than $102 on Halloween-related items.
And some of that spending is going towards Squid Game costumes, reflecting the worldwide popularity of the most watched series ever to launch on Netflix.
But it's not going to happen at one district upstate in New York. CBS 2's Tony Aiello has more on the costume controversy.
Squid Game, a Korean survival drama about people in debt hoping to win a bundle of cash competing in kids' games. Losers are eliminated, literally. The body count is high, the violence is graphic, which is why 3 elementary schools near Syracuse, New York, are banning Squid Game costumes, which mostly consist of jumpsuits, tracksuits, and masks for Halloween events, saying they do not meet our school costume guidelines due to the potential violent message aligned with the costume.
I spoke with 5 parents here in the Bronx, and every one of them thought those upstate school leaders were overreacting.
Just a costume. Just don't let your kids watch the show.
So for a school to actually impose that, that's being very overbearing.
The superintendent in White Plains tells me Squid Game costumes won't be banned there, calling it a slippery slope. For example, historically, pirates were violent outlaws.
We understand that different types of costumes, sort of have different types of experience and historical connections. It's hard to single out one particular type of costume and say that's not allowed.
He says the bigger issue is kids who've seen or heard about Squid Game mimicking the show.
One of the things we've been hearing about in school districts all across the country is children coming to school and playing Squid Games on the playground. It's never appropriate to play at harming one another, and that really is the sort of guiding principle here.
Squid Game is hot for Halloween. Just check Instagram. Odds are you'll have one of these characters at your door come trick or treat. Tony Aiello, CBS 2 News.
The costume controversy apparently involves just a handful of schools so far. In addition to the 3 near Syracuse, a school in Ireland and another in Spain have banned Squid Game costumes.
It's the biggest show on Netflix, and that is saying something about Netflix. 142 million households have now tuned in and are tuning in to watch Squid Game.
Yes.
Hang on. Squid Game. It's a South Korean programme. It's a kind of dystopian drama, and it's all centred around innocent-looking children's games. But these are games with brutal, deadly consequences.
Yes, and schools are now warning parents against letting their children watch it due to its violent nature and fears that children are recreating the dangerous scenes. It's not the only violent show, though, of course, young audiences have been exposed to, and it is an age-old debate.
And the thing is that we do so much nowadays to protect our children because we love them so much. I mean, as I say, I've just become a grandparent and I will be doing everything in my power to allow my grandchild, with my son and my daughter-in-law, to have a childhood that's magical. Children are full of imagination. They're very creative little beings. So let's not fill their childhoods with darkness and things that they honestly think about these things.
If we've frankly been here before, I mean, I look back on my school days, my junior school days, pre-12, we used to play cowboys and westerns in the playground, and we used to shoot each other with our pretend Colt pistols at point-blank range. We used to shoot each other in the head. We used to shoot each other in the back. We'd have executions. We'd have shooting galleries where people were shot down, and people would writhe on the floor in pretend agony. Isn't that actually part, that hyperbole of fictional violence? It's part of growing up, isn't it? To play act violence. All children do. All children play act it. I remember going to see Saving Private Ryan. And the opening sort of 15 minutes of that film is the most violent thing I've ever seen on the screen. It's extraordinary. But it was accepted because it was a rendition of what actually happened on Omaha Beach in 1944, where real men went into battle and died. And the director of that film demonstrated what that actually means in terms of bullets going through heads and explosions and mortars going off and people being blown to pieces. I went there with my teenage son. He had to leave. We both left. He touched me about halfway through and said, "Dad, I can't watch this anymore." And we left. But it was seen as justified because it was in the context of real history and history within living memory.
What you said is absolutely true. It is a very smart show. It's a very smart and entertaining show. And I think there's a danger that we're focusing on the fact that it's hyper-violent, it's hugely gory. As you said in your introduction, it's no more violent than a dozen other shows I could mention straight away. Nobody is arguing that the violence in society is horrendous, but to single out a television show as a sort of scapegoat for this kind of stuff just seems ridiculous to me. I've watched the entire show, which is a very smart and interesting show. The violence is necessary. These people and who are playing this game have chosen to play this game. They have left the game, then come back to the game. It's about kind of inequality and desperation and greed and voyeurism and all that stuff. It's a deeply watchable and entertaining and smart show. And it is not.
Child protection authorities have begun warning parents to keep their kids away from Squid Game. The Korean drama is Netflix's most popular show ever, drawing 130 million viewers in its first month alone, but it's very violent. The show is fiction, but the games in it are based on real children's games, and some observers say the violence is spilling over into real life. Well, Halida Abero from DW Culture has been following this and is with me here in the studio. Halida, what's the problem here? Why are child protection authorities up in arms about this show?
Well, Terry, I don't know how well you know the show yourself, but it is very, very violent. It's fiction, obviously, and it's meant for adults, but that, unfortunately, has not stopped children from gaining access to it. Now, some of the games the characters play in the show are based on real childhood playground games that are played all around the world. And there have been reports that children are coming home from school and telling their parents that they've been playing Squid Game at school, obviously not in the classroom, but in the playground. And reports from many countries, so in Asia, in Europe, the US, Australia, say that kids as young as 6 years old have been spotted in playgrounds, adding a kind of cruel twist to some of these playground games by actually physically punishing the losers. Let me give you an example. One game that's actually featured in the show is a popular game called Red Light, Green Light. It's also known as Grandma's Footsteps in some countries, and I remember it as What's the Time, Mr. Wolf. You may have played it yourself. It's that game where you have a group of children who have to creep up on another child who's got their back turned, and when that child turns around, they've got to freeze. And if they're caught moving, then they're out. And there have been reports that these children are not just out, they're actually getting physically beaten up by the other children as a kind of punishment because these children have been watching or have heard about Squid Game.
So authorities are concerned for reasons you just mentioned, and they, I'm sure, would prefer that kids don't watch this, but can you really stop children from watching a television show?
It's very, very difficult these days. I mean, it's easier said than done. Netflix has rated Squid Game 15, meaning obviously that parents are advised not to allow their children under that age to watch it. But if you think, it also comes with a warning, I must say, not just about violence, but even about sex, about suicide even. It's being streamed in 130 million households around the world, though, Terry, and that is going up every day. So, as you can imagine, it's very hard to stop kids from somehow seeing this. And Netflix, of course, has parental control settings, but they're pretty easy to bypass if you know how. And kids that are not actually watching the show have been picking up its messages from social media platforms that are popular with with them. Like TikTok, for example. People have been posting their own versions of these games that are played in Squid Game on TikTok and challenging other users to actually copy them. And some of these videos have gone viral. It's literally got so bad that primary and elementary schools around the world have been sending emails and letters to parents saying, please, please check your parental control settings on your devices, talk to your kids, check what they're accessing on social media.
Wow, yeah. You know, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm not sure I will. Anyway,
it's not for everyone.
I guess not. Halida Abero from DW Culture, thank you so much.
오늘 영상은 여기까지입니다. 구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정으로 응원해주세요.